Okay, everybody, I'm going to call this meeting to order. And at this time, if you're able, please rise for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee.
Oops. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. There are no proclamations this evening. We do need to move the agenda as amended. If I can go to the clerk at this time.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff will be removing item 8.5, City Property Surplus Declaration. A new information has come to light this afternoon, which requires us to pull that report. Item 8.7 has been amended to correct a little clerical error. The bylaw and the report have been updated to reflect the setbacks as identified in the site plan.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. If I could have Councillors Beauregard and Danch move the agenda. Are there any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Disclosures of interest. I have Councillor Bodner has declared a conflict of interest on item 8.2 and 21.1, and Councillor Beauregard with items 8.2, 8.8, 11.1, 21.1, and 21.4. Any further conflicts of interest? We have one set of minutes, the regular meeting of Council, July 12th, 2022. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Wells move that. Are there any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. So at this time, we have items 8.1, 8.3, 8.4, 8.6, 8.7, and 8.8 being pulled. If I could have Councillors Desmarais and Bruno move the remainder of the items under correspondence and staff reports. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Under presentations, we do have one presentation this evening. We have Amy LeMay, and she's the coordinator of the Niagara Agricultural Municipal Learning Network. If she wants to come up at this time, we can have the presentation. You're on Zoom, I apologize. She's on Zoom. There we are. Good evening, Amy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Mayor Steele.
Go ahead.
I do have a slide presentation. I thought it was going to be there. I'm not seeing it on my screen.
We're just bringing that up.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, there you go.
Great. Okay, thank you. So thank you, Mayor Steele and Council, for the opportunity to present to you tonight. As Mayor Steele mentioned, I'm Dr. Amy LeMay. I'm a research fellow and an adjunct professor at Brock University, and I am the lead on this OMAFRA-funded project called Growing Municipal Capacity to Promote and Support the Agriculture sector in the Niagara region. Next slide, please. So this project is a direct response to a recent Greenbelt Foundation report that surveyed 60 municipalities in the Greenbelt to assess municipal capacity for supporting local agriculture sectors. The premise of the report was a thriving agriculture industry depends on the knowledge and support provided by municipal governments. Next slide, please. So with that premise in mind, this project has two main objectives. The first objective is to provide access to and share research, knowledge, tools, resources, and expertise with municipal staff and elected officials to support and inform policy, planning, and programming decisions that impact the Niagara agriculture sector. And second, to enhance the capacity of municipalities in Niagara for making evidence-informed decisions that respond effectively to merging and evolving agriculture issues and to capitalize on new opportunities to enhance the growth, competitiveness, and sustainability of Niagara's agriculture sector. Next slide, please. So I'm sure you're all aware of how important agriculture is to the Niagara region, but let's just recap for a moment. In 2016, and these statistics come from the 2016 Census of Agriculture. The 2021 Census of Agriculture is just being released by Stats Canada, so we're working with the 2016 stats. So in 2016, there were about 1,800 farms in Niagara, and these farms generated just over $800 million in gross farm receipts. These statistics represent just over 4% of the total farms in Ontario, but 5.5% of the total value of provincial farm receipts, which means that Niagara agriculture certainly punches above its weight in terms of its economic contribution to the region and to the province. The sector is also highly diversified. The top crops grown in the region include greenhouse, nursery, and floriculture, poultry and egg production, fruit and tree nut production, grains and oilseeds, which include crops such as corn, wheat, soybean, and oats, and swine production. There are also some very promising emerging opportunities that make agriculture a prime sector for economic development and growth in Niagara. However, there is another reason why agriculture deserves more attention from municipal governments. Next slide, please. Quite simply, agriculture is different. On the one hand, agriculture is an industrial sector that operates in both global and local markets, producing food, feed, fiber, and fuel. It's a key driver of our economy, creating jobs and contributing to gross domestic product. As an industrial sector, it's profit-driven. Unlike most other industrial sectors, it is subject to many external factors such as weather, and as we've seen in Russia and Ukraine recently, geopolitical interference. On the other hand, agriculture is a source of public goods. In this case, it operates in what we call a social ecological system, delivering collective social and ecological benefits for which farmers are not compensated. Increasingly, agriculture is expected to provide solutions to some of our most pressing challenges, such as climate change, environmental sustainability, and food security. Agriculture is often the basis of our social and cultural identity. I recently heard a farmer say that he was expected to feed the country, drive the economy, and save the environment. That's a lot to expect from agriculture. So when you look at agriculture from this dual private-public lens, I think you'll begin to see why it deserves more attention from municipal governments beyond the usual economic development and planning functions. Next slide, please. However, there are some challenges for supporting agriculture in the region. The Greenbelt report found that municipalities in the region had less than one full-time staff dedicated to agricultural issues. The report also found that fewer than 5% of municipalities in the Greenbelt reached out to academic and research institutions for advice and information. This means that there is limited capacity for accessing and using information, responding to agricultural issues, building relationships with the agriculture sector, capitalizing on new opportunities, and making evidence-based decisions. Next slide, please. So how do we grow capacity given the current constraints that municipalities are facing? One way is to improve access to and share knowledge, resources, and expertise. This project will do that through the Niagara Agriculture Municipal Learning Network. We will share resources, information, and expertise through a series of briefing notes on agricultural priorities, research summaries about research being done at Brock University, and farm tours. Next slide, please. The Niagara Agricultural Municipal Learning Network will serve as a portal for curating, a platform for accessing, and a forum for exchanging research, information, and expertise. But above all, it will be provided opportunity for learning. Next slide, please. The briefing notes will be short, concise summaries of key agricultural issues and priorities. We expect the briefing notes to be both a source of information and knowledge, but also to provide access to important resources and expertise and tools. We will be producing 5 briefing notes over the next 6 months, and each briefing note will be hosted on an online drop-in discussion session where you will have an opportunity to share your feedback and ask questions about each briefing note. The first briefing note was actually shared on July 29th. 11 Facts on Farming is an overview of some basic but surprising facts about agriculture. It covers some of the more challenging aspects that farmers must contend with. And in this first briefing note gives us a shared foundation for understanding the agriculture sector and some of the realities of farming that farmers face. This briefing note is available on the network website, which I'll share with you in just a moment. The future topics for the remaining briefing notes will be on on-farm biosecurity, agricultural infrastructure needs, agriculture and climate change challenges, and vertical farming. Next slide, please. The research summaries are meant to provide a profile of agricultural research being done at Brock to give you kind of behind the scenes look at the full extent of Brock's agricultural research. We hope that these summaries will open up opportunities for collaborations between Brock and the municipalities. We'll provide 3 research summaries over the next 6 months, and again, they will be connected with online drop-in sessions where you'll have a chance to meet the researcher and learn about more of their work. This first research summary will be ready later this month. Next slide, please. We will also be doing 2 farm tours next month. Thursday, September the 8th and Wednesday, September 28th, where you will have an opportunity to engage with local farmers, learn about emerging, evolving opportunities in agriculture and challenges facing the industry, and how municipal policies, planning, and programming decisions impact the industry. Registration for these tours will be open next Monday, August 15th, and we'll be sending an email out to network members with more details about how to register for these farm tours. Next slide, please. So how will you benefit from participating in this project? You will have access to the latest knowledge and information about key agricultural issues and priorities, and you will build capacity in using this information and research to make evidence-informed decisions. My hope is by participating in the Niagara Agricultural Municipal Learning Network, you will discover new ways to support a competitive, sustainable agriculture industry in the region. Participation is open to all elected officials and municipal staff. To build capacity, we need to have broad and diverse participation, and I invite you to join the network and encourage your colleagues to participate as well. Next slide, please. So in closing, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Please check out the Niagara Agricultural Municipal Learning Network website at this URL. You'll find more information there, and also you'll have access to the resources that we've been sharing since the last 2 months. Please feel free to contact me if you would like to join or would like more information. Thank you very much.
Great, Amy, thank you. And I'll ask for questions from council. Any questions this evening? Councillor Borgard?
Through your worship to the presenter, I just want to say thank you for your presentation. I have a question actually to our acting CAO. Do we have a web page, like on our website, do we have anything that focuses on local agricultural or agricultural tourism?
CAO?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor and to council. I'm not aware of anything specific that speaks to agricultural tourism, but if you're asking staff to review that and look at the possibilities of including something on the city's webpage, we can certainly endeavor to do that.
Great. Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is something that I certainly would be interested in, but also to include some of the information that Ms. LeMay has brought to our attention as well, so we can share that information. Thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, to council, I just wanted to add that the Economic Development and Tourism Services Division has had a representative attending some of the meetings. Olga Laughlin, our My Main Street ambassador, has been attending some of these meetings with the professor to represent the city. So I just wanted to note that, and I think she can bring back some information for council.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you also for the presentation. I want a couple of questions here. You're studying the support of agriculture in the green belt, where actually our municipality is not really in the green belt, but is there something this area could do? I have an outlaw relative that is a big farmer in the green belt, and it's like black and white between, say, Pelham area and Port Colborne area for farming. So are you also studying this area of the Niagara Peninsula?
Amy?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm pretty sure that the Greenbelt report included most municipalities in Niagara, even though they probably weren't officially part of the Greenbelt. Now, it was voluntary participation in the research project that the Greenbelt report did, but I'm pretty sure that most of the municipalities were represented. But definitely, our work in the network is targeting all the municipalities, including all the lower tier and the upper tier municipalities in the region, and we're supporting all those municipalities for sure.
Councillor?
And I should also note that, you know, we've got these set topics that were determined early on in the project that these briefing notes are going to address. But if there are issues or topics that are unique to the city, we're more than happy to support addressing those topics and providing information or resources on addressing those topics. So we can do both. We're providing these briefing notes, but we can also help you source out information.
Great. Councillor?
One more question, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Vertical farming and hydroponic container farming, it seems to be a big thing happening nowadays. You drive along to Queen E, it's prime agricultural land, and now there's a building there, but because it's a nursery with mortar and brick, it's considered okay to build in the prime farming area. So what's your view on the vertical farming and hydroponic container farming in the Greenbelt?
So I don't know enough about vertical farming, but one of the briefing notes that we will be doing is on vertical farming, and that was because there was a series of webinars delivered by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs earlier this year on vertical farming, so we're going to be tapping into those resources, and so we'll have more information about that later on in the next couple of months, so we probably can address those issues then.
Councillor?
Thank you very much. I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Further questions? Seeing none. Amy, again, thank you very much. And we do have our staff member that is involved. Plus, I'm sure you've been involved with the Niagara Region's Agricultural Committee, which both Councillor Butters and I sit on as representatives.
Yep.
They're very active, as you know. Mm-hmm. So we can see lots of good things coming forward with regarding to our farming communities across Niagara. So again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. So with that, if I could have Councillors Bagu and Beauregard move to receive this presentation. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have one delegation this evening, Chris Laverick, a request to receive exemption from bylaw 6949/95/21 and relief from recharge to tax account. Mr. Laverick, if you want to come up to the podium. And just press the red button and give us your full name and address.
Chris Laverick and Alicia Biggs, 18 Morningside Drive, St. Catharines.
Okay. Go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you for your time this evening. I'll try not to be too long. So I have a property that I purchased in September on Highway 3, 2970. It is an old school, and we are in the process of changing zoning to turn it into either an apartment or a storage facility. There was an incident that took place March 17th, as far as I know, due to the letter that was given to me, that there was an incident where we had the fire and safety and the NRP assessed the problem and deemed it as an emergency and hired a contractor to come and board up, I think, 4 windows. Now, we are kind of puzzled as to why we weren't contacted. We've been in contact with the bylaw of Port Colborne twice, both of which were addressed immediately, one with Madison Kassar and another with, pardon me, with a Travis Morden. The property was deemed abandoned and vacant, but we, again, have been in constant contact. I've been paying property taxes, electrical bills, etc. I own a wood shop. If I would have been notified, I could have assessed it that day. I went and checked out the damages myself. It is a window that got broken, not much bigger than my hand. Reason why it was deemed an emergency was because there was a possibility of squatters. There's no way anybody went through that window without scraping their back or nothing. It's just probably a kid throwing a rock through a window, a wired window. I also inspected the property. There was no evidence of people living there. It's just as vacant as the day I bought it. So I did reach out to the fire chief, and he told me to kind of take it up with you guys. He deemed it an emergency, therefore bringing me here.
One of the problems that we're having, though, is we are trying to look, like we are told that we should know these bylaws and the rules and everything, but we're trying to do our research, trying to be proper property owners and research bylaws and get more information, but we're having a very difficult time doing it. So the website does not offer any way to look up bylaws. The only way that we can look up bylaws is by filling out a contact link on there, which we did do. I filled it out myself. I sent an email on July 26th. We haven't received a reply. So we're trying to get information, but no one is getting back to us. So we don't even know like why we weren't contacted, we're not disputing the fact that we can be charged, but we want to know why this was deemed an emergency. We want to know why we weren't contacted. We want information on bylaws. We just want to educate ourselves, and we're not getting anything. That's about it.
I think that's about everything for now.
Okay, great. I'll ask councillors any questions at this time. Councillor Bruno?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, did you mean to the presenter or questions like to the
To the
chief?
presenter at this time.
No, thank you.
Any questions to the presenter? Councillor Baggy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The property that you own, I drove by yesterday, is for sale again. Are you selling the property? Is the property being sold again? I guess that's my question.
If the price is right, I mean, obviously I've got plans for it, but if somebody comes by and offers me, absolutely, I'll take it if the price is right.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Further questions? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. I think they've got questions to staff too, Council. Counselor Bruno?
Thank you through you to the chief. Chief, I'm just wondering, it's the normal, I mean, vacant buildings are not uncommon in any community. And so when there is damage or the ability for someone to enter that building, can you walk us through what the protocol is? I mean, somehow you find out about it or your department. And where does it go from there? I mean, you assess it. Is the property owner normally made aware of, given that they could be out of town on vacation, wherever? So I think the crux of the issue for me at least is, do property owners first get made aware after you arrive at a building that's been reported?
Chief Lawson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. So under the FPPA, when we step on a property, we take over care and control of that property to, whether it's a fire, car accident, whatever, to mitigate any issues or safety issues. We do not step off any grounds until all liability issues are taken care of. Vacant building, I can tell you that there was more than just a window broken. The front doors were wide open. So when we get a call like that, we actually have Niagara Regional Police come through. We make sure that the building is empty so that we can secure it. Then we secure it, and then we can leave the property. One of the biggest concerns we always have is when we step on that property, we take over liability for the safety of that property. That's why we do what we do and the procedures that we follow. We board it up and make sure that property is safe before we leave.
Counselor?
Thank you.
Counselor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, through you to staff, and I'm not sure exactly who's going to be taking this one, but it has to do with access to information, particularly the bylaws on our website. That is very concerning. I can well imagine how frustrated someone would be if they're looking for information and they can't find it. I will say, though, that I don't think that would have helped avoid this situation, but in any case, it might have made it clearer. Could somebody address what is going on with the website, why this can't be found?
Chief Lawson?
Through the mayor to council, our website is definitely still under construction, and I do apologize that if the information isn't there, and I can definitely follow up with staff why you haven't gotten that information.
Yeah.
That is concerning for sure. The staff person that usually does our website has been very busy. We put her out in the field because we've been having problems keeping up. So that's why we've fallen behind. So we've been kind of going on what's screaming the loudest, and outside work's been screaming the loudest. So we will get to that eventually, and we can definitely prioritize that.
Counselor?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Chief Lawson. I do appreciate that reply. I would like to see, though, that possibly customer service be involved in replying to the email with the request for information, because that should happen immediately. There's not really a reason for that not to happen. We have a few customer service reps.
No, and through the mayor to council, I do apologize for that. There is no room for that.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Wells?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Chief Lawson. Were there any issues with this property prior to this event? Were there any orders issued to it? Was it on the radar by bylaw for some problems?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, I wish I could answer that. I'm sure that we've had some grass complaints and other issues. The building has been vacant for some time, and any building that's been vacant for some time, we do have activities that we worry about if it's not secure.
Counselor?
Thank you.
Counselor Bagu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you, Mr. Mayor, to Chief Lawson. After it was boarded up, did the city notify the owners, or did they just happen to find it themselves?
Chief?
No, and that may have been a slip up on my behalf. We do send a bill for this, and there was a delay in time. My memory's not as good as it should be, Councillor. But I do believe we tried to reach out, whether there was some information issues or not. But I can definitely follow up on why there wasn't immediate contact.
Counselor?
Through you, thank you, Chief. One comment I'd like to make is, before I was on council, I sat in the chambers there. An issue come up to the past council regarding grass cutting. I think it was a house on Sugarloaf Street, and the bylaw reply was they don't have to notify the owners of the house because it was vacant, they moved away. The owners notified the taxation department to send their taxes and stuff to them in another city. But the bylaw response was they don't have to notify the owners. They cut the grass, all they gotta do is put the letter in the mailbox or front door. After 7 days, you just come and cut the grass. And the question at council then was, why can't bylaw talk to another department to find out if they can find out who the actual owner of the property is and notify these owners, because it was available through City Hall. And I'm just wondering if that loophole that problem still exists within our departments.
Chief?
So I think there's, through the mayor to council, I think there's two different issues here. We're talking about how we serve orders. So it is deemed served if it's mail or posted. So that's a little bit different. Definitely, there's lots of avenues to find information. I can tell you sometimes we do hit walls, and we just have mailing addresses. If anybody that knows me, I prefer to talk to people on the phone or face to face. So again, I can look into why we didn't. I know for the most part we're fairly fluid at the fire hall, but maybe we didn't get across the hall like we should have and followed up through bylaw to secure that building.
Counselor?
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Counselor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the fire chief. I think you said it, but I want to hear it clearly. So in other situations, you have boarded up a building before you left. Is that true? This isn't a one-off. This isn't a, weird situation?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, this is standard procedure for us. And I can take you for a drive around the city and show you multiple properties that if it's boarded up, we probably did it.
Right. I think I'm familiar with a few of them. So this is standard procedure.
This is standard for us
All right.
how we operate.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions, council? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Laverick, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So at this time, we need to receive the delegation. If I could have Councilors Danch and Bodnar move that this be received. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Danch.
And through you. So,
Microphone.
it's not vacant for a while. So is he responsible for the charges, or are we in limbo here? We don't know what we're doing, or?
It's up to council. The bill has been sent and received by the landowner.
And I understand that side of it.
He's here tonight to dispute this. You've heard what's been said. Council wants to make a decision, then that's something that council is going to have to put forward.
I think he possibly doesn't have all the answers to some of the questions that have been brought up here. And although that's the way it is, we've boarded up your building and the fire department charges $500 to $6 per hour. I don't know if the guy's got all the answers he wants here. I mean, it's Gasline School. It was St. John's Christian something or other back in the day. So the building's had a couple names on it, but I just wonder if you're satisfied with what you got from us tonight, or you got a $2,000 bill you got to pay.
You want an answer from Mr. Laverick on this?
Yeah, like I'd like to hear what you have to say. I mean, you haven't really got a direct answer to your question, and your $2,000 bill is still outstanding.
Yeah. Come on up to you have to come up to the podium, please. Thank you.
To be honest, I was a little nervous. I jumped through my facts a little quickly, but I kind of want to know where I'm standing with this. I mean, this happened back in March, and I didn't get a letter for this until July 13th. So it's been outstanding for, 4 or 5 months? then I don't even think the NRP even made a report on this, and they were the first ones called. So what deemed it as an emergency is my question, basically. Thank you.
Counselor?
So, sorry, through you.
Yep.
So you're saying that this situation took place in March, and you just received a letter in July as far as the charges?
That is correct.
Chief?
Sorry, through the mayor to councillor, that's when the bill would have been sent out. I cannot confirm or deny if staff had reached out. We would have turned that over to bylaw to reach out.
Counselor?
I think, in all honesty, to the individual here, I mean, with that type of time that lapses with no communication, no doubt it's on your tax bill, but I think say, hey, listen, no interest on those charges until we go a little bit further here and find out the answers to why some communication wasn't put forward to you. I'd like to do I make that a motion or?
Yes, Counselor.
Okay, I'd like to make an emotion that the fees are included on your tax bill at this time, but there's no interest charges until it's properly handled to find out the way this whole thing came about, and the time lapse that went on there isn't really acceptable.
Okay, I need a seconder for that. I don't have a seconder, Counselor. No, that's correct. Counselor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to put a motion on the floor with respect to this. Considering the difficulties in communication, I just think as a goodwill gesture, and council will decide if they want to join me in this or not, but as a goodwill gesture that we should go forward with recovering the $1,397.03 and forgive the rest of it. That's the motion I'd like to put forward.
Okay, seconder for that. Counselor Danch. Questions? No questions? I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry. Counselor Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess if this motion were to go through, what we're saying is, so the incident did happen. On our side, it was a delay in notification, but the fire department did respond. They did charge their rate, and they passed along the rate of the contractor to do it. So I'm sympathetic to the property owner. I guess I'm concerned with, certainly after however we vote tonight, are we really saying that if we don't notify people or get a bill out within X amount of days, that the policy is that the department's charges, efforts were, they're penalized for not getting it out. They don't get recover the money. And I don't think we have an establishment. I'm just suggesting to council that post tonight, we better come to terms with then that our departments have X amount of days to get a bill out, or part of the bill gets forgiven. So I'm concerned about your situation tonight, but I'm also concerned about the next time this happens. Is there going to be a benchmark for departments to have to get out their bill? Because the bill is the bill. The costs were incurred. How do we handle that? And I'm just going to throw that out there. We can deal with this tonight, but I think we need to decide if we're going to do that. Are we going to do it and put the onus on staff that they have to respond within a given period of time, or they lose the fee and all we do is get our costs reimbursed that aren't city costs? So just want to put that out there for now and prepare to vote on the motion. Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Councilor Wells?
Through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Bowles. Do we have any target for invoicing and payments? I know we charge interest if we don't get paid in time, but do we have any targets that we put forward to our accounting group in order for them to put out invoices and receive payment?
To the mayor, to the councilor and council, it's a good question. Right now in our bylaws, we don't have a set amount of time established. The process of invoicing is interesting throughout the municipality because it relies on those that do the action at the front end. And when that gets communicated to the finance department, finance moves forward with the invoicing in those situations. It is something we could look to require departments to have certain things in, and then we'd have a follow-up invoice within a certain amount of time, and something that we can definitely take away from this discussion today. But right now, that standard has not been set.
Councillor?
Thank you, Director Bowles. I think, well, a matter of performance issues are in an accounting group is days to invoicing and days to payment. That's a standard that I'm used to. I think that would be a good key performance indicator to have within our group in order to do that, to sort of monitor how that's happening. But on top of that, I'd like to go back through you, Your Worship, to Chief Lawson in regards to a question of standard processing or standard procedures when it comes to vacant buildings, or when I say vacant buildings may be under construction, they may be brand new, they may be older buildings, they may be ones being renovated, there may be ones that are just nobody living there anymore. Is there do we maintain a list of those owners and a contact list on those as a proactive measure, so that if an event occurred at one of those targeted sites, that there could be an immediate contact of the owner to avoid some unfortunate circumstances?
Chief?
Through the mayor to the council, yes, we do have a vacant building bylaw. I think with this case, I believe the owner said they just bought it in September. It's back up for sale. These properties have a tendency to turn over, and unless we're notified, sometimes that list becomes very stagnant.
Councillor?
And that list would contain the owner that you would have been advised of at the time. And if it's not maintained because the owner doesn't contact you, then that responsibility would go back to any of the new owners that would receive that property after the fact. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to council, definitely, if we haven't had any interactions with that property, that list would not be updated.
Thank you.
Councillor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a statement. I sat around here for a few years, and I can't remember forgiving ever a situation like this. And while I feel for the owner who could have supposedly fixed it up, it's always been so when we did it. I mean, that we invoice late is unfortunate. But like Councilor Bruno said, it happened. We responded. We were there. Chief Lawson will not leave the scene until it's secured. The fact we were late is, unfortunate, but I don't see how we can not follow through with what was invoiced out. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bagu, then Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know there was some talk with this municipality, I remember Director Bowles or Councilor Correlia, that some municipalities for vacant buildings, they do charge a fee every year, and that fee goes towards the inspection of the so-called empty building. It's usually a downtown building, a business, and they pay so much every year, and that gives by law the resources to go check these buildings out and check up on them if there's anything that has to be done. the owner is notified because you have to register their vacant property with the municipality. It may be something we can look at in the future. I know it would solve, maybe it would stop a few more problems. It's not going to stop everything 100%. Nothing in this world ever does stop 100%, but that could be something going forward, Mr. Mayor, that vacant buildings have to be registered with the city and a deposit put on with the city to pay for the resources once a year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Bruno?
Thank you. Through you, and maybe Mr. Bowles or Chief Lawson. So if I understand things correctly, there is a bylaw infraction here, and the fire department responded and is recharging their time. So is that correct? Is there in the first instance a bylaw infraction? Second instance, I believe I understand the fee is charged to recoup the fire services.
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, yes, there was a bylaw infraction, and if we want to get right down to it, the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, there was a violation of not securing a vacant building.
Thank you.
Councilor?
And through you to either the chief or Mr. Bowles, the recharge by the fire department, does that go back as a fee, revenue, or income, or however you want to phrase that, to the fire department, or does it go to city general coffers?
Chief? Or Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to the councilor, we do budget for non-specific fees to come in, so there's no specific item or number, but it will end up, for this account, will end up in the fire department, these fees.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Okay. Further questions? I'll give you some latitude, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to
It's okay.
say for the record that I have been in talks with, I believe it's a Chris Room. I'm in the process of changing the zoning, but there's tests I need to get done, and they're taking me 6 to 8 months to conduct. Like I said before, bylaw did come out and saw an infraction. I responded to him immediately. It was to do with the staircase, actually, which is funny because I work with staircases, but he was okay with leaving it as is because he knew what I was going to do. I explained exactly what I was trying to do with the property and that I was just waiting. I was going to deal with it anyway, just not right then and there. And he said, that's cool. I'll reach back out to you in some time. Let me know how the tests and the zoning is coming along. And it was left at that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, do you want to read that back?
Yes. That the fee of $1,397 be recovered from the property owner and the remaining fee be waived.
Okay, and that was moved by Councilor Demery and Danch. One last kick at the cat here. Questions? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. All those opposed to the motion? The motion is defeated. Anything further, councilors? So back to the original motion, which was to receive the delegation. I had Councilors Danch and Bodnar moving that. Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lavery. Now on to the mayor's report. So welcome back, everyone, council, staff, and guests. It's been a beautiful summer and very eventful, and it sure is going quickly, believe me. And we hope everyone is enjoying this as much of it as you can. After more than 4 years in the planning, the Canada Summer Games, known as Niagara 2022, is finally underway. With mayors from across the region, I was proud to be part of the opening ceremony Saturday night at the Meridian Center in St. Catharines. And what a night it was. Impressive at every turn. The organizing committee outdid themselves. Thousands of athletes, coaches, volunteers were celebrated with music, acrobatics, so much color and energy. It was very incredible. I hope you've all seen it online, and if you weren't there, or if you haven't, please do so, because you will be blown away. We look forward to August the 15th, so mark your calendars, when the Port Colborne edition of the 13 for 13 Cultural Festival will be held at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park. August 15th is Acadian Day. And so get your noisemakers. It can be a pot, a pan, anything you want to bang. New Year's Eve rattlers, anything. Bring them out and get ready for the tin and air. As we'll be hosts of Team New Brunswick and a terrific lineup of New Brunswick entertainers and musicians. We do have a children's show beginning at 11, and then the main festivities get underway around 3 o'clock. So hope all you guys can come out, because it's going to be a lot of fun, believe me. After 2 long years, Canal Days was back, and by all counts, it was one of the best festivals we've ever presented. It was only just over a week ago, but already feels like a month. It was so good to have our festival back after 2 years of pandemic isolation. I believe everyone was thrilled about just being able to get together again on the street, along the canal, in the parks, at the marina, the museum and library, over at Roselawn, and out at the Valley Center for fantastic Napa Auto Parts Car Show and the Optimus Craft Show. I'm so proud of our city, all of our staff and volunteers, and our sponsors, without whom we could not present a festival of this caliber with so much variety at so many venues. It's the first time we had so many of our staff from every department participating in one way or another. Great to see our crew come together for the good of our city. We met people from all over Ontario, excuse me, New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, from Australia, England, and Germany. They all commented on how impressed they were, how smoothly everything ran, how accessible everything was, and how great concert lineups were at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park and at the Patio and West, and that they were welcomed with open arms by the owners and staff of our local stores and restaurants. I was invited to choose my favorite car at the Classic Car Show. It was a 1962 Corvette. It was red. It came down to 2 cars, so my committee of 3 chose that vehicle, and it was absolutely gorgeous. The gentleman was from Welland, so congratulations to him. I was also invited to present autographed guitars to 2 Grateful contest winners at our concerts. The concerts were amazing and very well attended this year, and we're grateful for Dave Rappeljay and his team, who do such a super professional job for us. I welcome so many sponsors and council colleagues aboard the Empire Sandy for a beautiful cruise in Lake Erie. It was a great to welcome back the captain and crew of the E.M. Cotter fireboat from Buffalo. Huge crowds on board going through that ship, especially kids. I was invited aboard the HMCS Oriole, met the captain and their comms director. It's a Royal Canadian Navy training vessel based out of Halifax. I was able to meet a number of the crew. We exchanged some swag between us and the captain of the Oriole. So again, another ship that was packed all day long with people touring that, and really getting to talk to not just the captain, but the crew in general across the decks. I share with all of you the opinion that our Canal Days fireworks show on Sunday night is the best fireworks show in Ontario, if not anywhere. And when I'm invited to these places to meet and be with these amazing people, I do so as a representative of all of you, the entire city of Port Colborne. I do that with tremendous honor and great pride. So on council's behalf and all the citizens of our great city, I thank each and every one of you for attending the festival, for supporting it, for supporting the businesses that support our festival, and our city, and for volunteering to make the festival such a great success. Join me in also thanking our sponsors, including those major sponsors at the captain's level, Tourism Niagara, the Factor Music Foundation, Valet Canada, the provincial and federal governments. And we also had sponsors at the quartermaster level, first mate, boatswain, deckhand, and media partners. And it takes many hands to pull a festival together. And again, we are so grateful for everyone. So with that, I'm wishing all the best for the rest of the summer. Let's hope it goes by slow, and please continue to stay safe and stay healthy. Any questions, councillors? Great. Councillor Butters is not here this evening, obviously in person or on Zoom. Are there any regional questions? Okay. So let's get into staff remarks. Staff. Chief.
Through the mayor to council, I just want to address some happenings within the city last week, we did have the white wolf incident that came out. While I would love to be able to discuss it openly right now, we do have an open investigation with our allied agencies that we're working with, NRP, SPCA, and Ministry of Natural Resources. I can tell you that the animal was not registered with us, and it would fit within our exotic animal bylaw. But other than that, I just ask for some patience with council and our community until we can do things properly and follow through with it.
Okay.
And I'm open to any questions, but I will probably tell you no.
Yes. Councillor Dimmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chief Lawson. Chief, I don't have any specific questions tonight, but I do have one that's kind of an overriding question. Many members of the public have reached out to me and expressed their outrage and concern. And I've carefully written down all of their questions, all of their concerns. So if I were to compile a list of those and add my own and send them to you, would you be sure to include those in any investigation so that we can get answers to those?
Chief?
Through the Mayor to Council, it'd be my
pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. I think that the public knows then everything is that they've been asking is being answered. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Chief. Not a good day, believe me. Mr. Bowles.
Thank you. Through the Mayor to Council, just a couple quick updates. One, just to publicly from our division, just a big thank you. And the Mayor made mention to Canal Days, to Luke Rowe. Our events coordinator did an amazing job, and our staff did as well. And a big shout out to a couple of our councillors, Councillor Wells, Councillor Bagu, and Regional Councillor Butters, who all were at some of our tents, and we put them to work, throwing some stuff around and sweating in that heat. So it was nice. Everybody was out there, and our mayor was out there getting some of that done as well too. So big thank you to all. And then two updates quickly on the beach. So the one is, I have been asked a couple questions about the washroom and where the washroom project is. We have been struggling with some supply chain issues, and at this point in time, I expect we're going to have it done by the fall, but we're going to miss this beach season, and we'll be having to introduce it for next beach season. They're coming along quite well outside of missing windows and some other ideas that we're having with the supply chain, but we look forward to introducing that next year. And the other one is just some good news. Port Colborne is really using Nickel Beach this year, which has been fantastic, and we've been having record numbers. Some days we've been having 80 cars from Port Colborne, where we used to do about 20 or so. So for the next couple weekends, we are looking to reduce the number of Port Colborne resident vehicles on. So we will be fluctuating it based on the demand, and we may go down from the 200 to the 150 range just to make sure there's still parking and space for everybody and it stays to be a very safe environment. We made the commitment to council that if we saw the pickup and there was more usage, we would look to lower it. So in the next couple weekends, we do look to lower that as the weather stays very nice, and the demand for the beach has been incredibly high this year. It's been a great spot to be. If there's any questions, happy to take them.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bowles. Councillor?
Yeah, through you to Brian. Last week I read that Nickel Beach was closed due to bacteria. Is we back up and running there? We're good to go here now, or?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor and council. So the Niagara region does testing on a regular basis, and quite often, when they do the testing, they'll post it on their website. It doesn't always mean that Nickel Beach closes at some point in time. Sometimes Nickel Beach will still stay open and people can come and use the sand and walk in the water and that, but then we actually do just notify people that the bacteria levels are up. So when we do that, it's a notification. We have a sign at Nickel Beach. People can scan it. They can look on their website. They can see the water quality at that point in time. But we don't necessarily close Nickel Beach just because there may be a high level of bacteria, which we have had at a couple times during the course of the week, or during the course of the summer.
Okay. Councillor Bruno.
I guess to drill down a little more on Councillor Dance's question, I don't know if this is the way at Nickel Beach, but there are many beaches that get the posting. Tell the people at entry, but if they want to enter for the social aspect or the sun tanning or playing on the beach, they still pay the fee and can go in. So that's the reason for it not being closed. I just wanted to close the loop on that. Is that the case?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councilor, that's 100% the case. Many people still want to use the other amenities, enjoy the sun, play catch, frisbee, and the like on the beach, and they still choose to enter. So that's where we don't close the gates, but you may not want to swim in those situations.
Councilor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Director Bowles, I'm just going to bring up a point. I sent an email weeks ago regarding the cleaning of the beach and the packing down of the sand, and a resident wanted to know because cars were getting stuck and there was seaweed along the shore, a little bit of seaweed and stuff, and the answer I received was due to the Ministry of Natural Resources order, the city cannot remove the algae or seaweed and pack down the sand so vehicles wouldn't get stuck in there because of the potential of a fowler toad habitat. Is that correct?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councilor, that is correct. Whenever we do any work on the beach, we need to receive notification or approval. And at this point in time, we don't have approval to remove that, those items that are on the beach or do that pack down.
Councilor?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. You're set? Okay. Mr. Szpolski?
Through you, Your Worship, to Council. I was asked to bring forward just a quick update on the Hydro One transformer station, and as you all know, there was a significant investment put forward by Hydro One, and there was a completion date of 2022, and I just want to let Council know that they are still on track, and the proposed completion date at this time is November of this year. So it's good news.
Great news. Okay, Councilor?
To Mr. Szpolski. Steve, I'm just wondering, often the completion date is often ancillary to the transformer station being up and running. Grading, gates, office, all kinds of things. Do we know if the power actually has been switched over, notwithstanding the rest of the job is maybe not done, or the last 5%? Is there a difference there?
Yep, through you, Your Worship, to Councilor Bruno. Right now they're at 85 to 90% complete. The hydro hasn't been switched over, but they're in the process of doing that very, very shortly, and then there will be a cleanup period. There are strict timelines for this, so I would expect that they will be on that end of November deadline. Pretty solid.
Good, thank you. Anything further? Staff online, anything? Okay, nobody's popped up. All right, council remarks. I'm going to start, am I right this week? Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have just one thing to report, and that is that on July the 25th, CAO Louis and Manager Long and I had an opportunity to speak with Shirks and Shores Management Group in regards to establishing a meeting with the residents to discuss the access situation that exists there. And we are in the process right now of establishing that meeting and confirming that meeting for August the 25th. So that's moving along.
Great, thank you, Councilor.
And that's it.
Good. Councilor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of items. Most are great. I want to start by saying about Canal Days, I usually receive calls for everything that goes wrong in the city. It seems like everyone has my phone number, but I'll tell you, it was a joy after Canal Days because all the calls I got were complimentary. People were really impressed. So know that they were just absolutely impressed. Even the parking calmed down and people were not upset with that. So it really did go a long way. It was great. I understand that Luke Rowe and our band of staff heroes they saved the day and made everything wonderful. So it was good. I certainly enjoyed my stint volunteering at the museum, so it was fun. But it was a great day or a great weekend rather, and I do thank all of staff for their efforts on that. I also got a call just before I left the house this evening from someone who uses our trails regularly. I just wanted to make a note that She was very happy that the trails were being cleaned. I didn't realize, but apparently we had sweepers on the trails today. So she was very happy that that was happening, and made note that a lot of the changes that have been happening and the upkeep of the trails have been really positive, and it's become far more user-friendly. So she just wanted to pass along those compliments to staff. So I'm doing that here without a doubt. The one negative I do have has to do with the seaway and the roads approaching the bridges. Roads and sidewalks and all the potholes around them, they are really becoming more and more of a problem all the time. And I think I've made mention of this many times, but it just continues to be. So if we could get on them and make them understand that they need to fix them in a way that they stay fixed for at least one season, it would be great. So, but you know, when a person that is in a handicap type conveyance gets tossed out onto the road because of the potholes, that's not a good thing. It's just not a good thing at all. So we need to be looking after that, taking care of it. If our older people can't maneuver the sidewalks and stepping down and twisting their leg or their ankle into a pothole, that's not a good thing either. So we need to move on that. But that is the one negative thing, and I trust that staff will follow up on that. And that's everything. Thank you.
Mr. Long, I think I'll have some good information here.
Thank you. Through your worship to the councillor. I can confirm that Mr. Higginbotham and I have a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock with Seaway officials to talk about a number of things, and we will add this to the agenda.
Thank you. You're making me look good.
And just further to that, I thought Mr. Long would even go further, but we also have a meeting coming up with their new government relations representative who just started. I met him during the torch delivery, and he introduced himself, so we have a meeting scheduled with him. And we also have a meeting with the Vice President, Jean-Aubry Morin, coming up also. So we have lots to discuss with the St. Lawrence CA. Thank you for bringing that up, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Ditto some of the other comments on Canal Days. Sort of a complaint-free, quiet phone, an email at my house on Canal Days. Thanks for the new initiatives. I really enjoyed what Labatt did in terms of being the new sponsor. In particular, I've heard some stories about how some of the synergies that they've done with LCBO helped our staff not have to do a lot of load that they've had to do in the past. And I look forward to their report on some of the stat information and demographics that they were pulling. I'd also like to congratulate Mr. Szapowski on the new position, and I know all of us are rooting for him and looking for continued relations and support that Steve's always been there for all of us in council and the citizens. Happy to see that that's come to fruition. And just on that, Steve, if you could pass along, and I understand some of this was your doing, quietly. We have municipal access agreements, and we had a member of staff absent, and 2 infill houses on Elm Street at George were looking to do curb cuts, and Matt Pilon was filling in. He told me that Steve had reassigned him because of backlog and time delays. Within a week, both municipal access permits were completed, and driving here tonight, the curb cuts were done and satisfied customers. So, Steve, thanks for filling that shortfall and fixing it on behalf of the citizens. And as a councillor from the ward who handled those, appreciate the quick turnaround. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Beg, yes, Beg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple comments to Public Works. Thank you very much for putting the crosswalk at H.H. Knoll Park to the food trucks. I know I brought that up probably 5 or 6 months ago. And just before Canal Days, I saw the city crew out there doing it. Actually, I drove by and I thanked them. And I also saw the city crest in the pavement too, so that might be extra, I don't know. But to staff, thank you for bringing up in staff reports a couple of my issues regarding Nickel Beach and the hydro. And Canal Days, I'm probably about the only one that received a few complaints, because it's my ward. I probably going to lose a few votes in an upcoming election too regarding the, probably the notification of the residents for parking in front of their houses and that. Some people didn't get notified, they're not on social media that much, they don't read the paper that much, and so they weren't quite aware of it till very, very late. I actually went house to house in my block up to the night before, urging people to contact City Hall to get their pass if they're gonna have visitors, or if they're gonna park out front. But I'm sure next year if we do it, we'll have a lot better communication with the residents affected, Mr. Mayor. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Beauregard? Thank you. Councilor Danch?
Yeah, just a couple for you tonight. I guess Steve there, I spoke with him before. We've got a shopping cart. It's been sitting on Main and Canal Bank for 5 days now. It's right in front of a flower pot. Can't believe nobody said something to somebody, but Steve's comment to me was, I'll pick it up on my way home. And I said to him, you have people that work for you. But nevertheless, 5 days, it's right in everybody's visible eyes. It should be not there that long. I think what do we get, 25 bucks for picking one of them up? In the city bylaw, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, second note there, and not to use the same area, but on Canal Bank, if you're making a right-hand turn off of Main Street, and I guess the guy's at Pizza picking up his pizza, you shouldn't be parking on the road there. You can't get around the corner. So, I mean, and if it was an emergency vehicle or something like that, and, you know, depending on your situation, maybe no parking, and they have a parking lot. I mean, they can certainly use that. So if we could look into maybe what the guys are doing. I mean, if they're, you know, skip the dishes, but no one knows you're gonna be there 5 minutes or 15, right? So that's about all I got. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Bodnar.
Staff's taken care of everything that I had. Thank you.
Good, thank you. On to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. First up is item 8.1, building permit fee recommendation report. Recommendation that Development and Legislative Services Department Report 2022-167 be received, and the council approve the new building permit fees identified in Appendix A of Appendix A Building Fee Review Report, and that the updated Schedule T of the user fees and charges bylaw be included in a future amendment to bylaw 69499521. If I can have Councilors Bodnar and Danch move that. Questions, Councilor Bruno?
Thank you, Worship. I think in my comments earlier in the public meeting, I'm happy to rescind that. I'm fine.
Thank you. Councilor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a few questions here. The present building stabilization reserve fund covers 55% of the expenditures. What percentage number are we going to look at to achieve? Because it says some municipalities have between 100% to 300%. What is our municipality's goal?
Ms. Lander?
Through the mayor to the councillor, the intent was to proceed with the 5% increase if council was in support of that, and for us to monitor the reserves. And then in the future, the intent would be to bring back a report to let council know where the reserves are at, so we can look at maintaining at least a 55%. So right now we don't have a target of where we're aiming for, but given the comments at the public meeting, we were looking to at least add the 5% in case we had a downturn of building permit applications.
Councilor?
Okay, thank you very much to you, Mr. Mayor. Another question, by doing this 5% increase with the 2023 budget request coming to council, and I do know that this department has hired a contractor to help with the backlog and stuff like that, to catch up and stuff. Will that affect the budget request coming up?
Ms. Lander? Mr. Chief Lawson?
Through the mayor to council. This 5% is strictly to go into the reserves for futures, right? So this won't have any effect on our asks for the budget for 2023.
Councillor?
Okay, I'm good, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.3, Department of Museum and Cultural Registrar Report. Recommendation that Department of Museum and Culture Report 2022-166 be received. And that the recommendations to increase the part-time position of registrar to a full-time position moving forward be approved. If I could have Councillors Bruno and Baggy move that. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship, but just a clarification first. Recently in the reorg at Public Works, there was a mention of looking at all departments on efficiencies, business plan, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just wondering through you to Mr. Bowles, can that, I don't know if you've prioritized which ones will be next, but I would like to know if it's doable to have that museum and cultural block area looked at as first in line in that review so that we could deal with this matter. Is that possible?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor. Recently, actually, the library kind of put themselves forward and said they'd like to be next. And your comment or question there, I think would make a lot of sense because with the two properties side by side. So we can work internally with Human Resource and the CAO to coordinate a library museum staffing review to help with this decision for sure.
Thank you. Now that I have that clarification, I'd like to put forward that the museum library cultural block report 22-16-6 be referred to the Corporate Services Department for a staffing review and a report be brought back before or at the 2023 budget deliberations.
Seconder for that, Councillor Bagu. There's no questions. You're fine with that, Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through yourself, definitely. We can coordinate that internally in corporate services and be back in time for the budget.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor. Item 8.4, application for approval to expropriate 1 foot reserve, Christmas Bell and Johnson Streets. Recommendation that Chief Administrative Office, Economic Development and Tourism Division Report 2022-177 be received. And the council directs staff to engage the city solicitor to prepare an application for approval to expropriate the 1 foot reserve at the end of Christmas, Bell and Johnson Streets, legally described as PIN 64164-0451. If I could have Councillors Beauregard and Demery move that. I have Councillor Bruno with a question.
Thank you, Worship. In facilitating this, as I read the report, we can be reimbursed for the cost of doing that. Is that correct, Mr. Bowles?
Not you? Who wants to answer that?
Or sorry, is that Mr. Long, maybe? So in the report, it talks about, we have to go through some legal proceedings, surveys, all of that stuff, and it will facilitate the potential development of the adjoining lands. My question is, we're sort of doing it and then asking for a payment. So is there an agreement that the payment will be guaranteed, or could the developer front the payment? And secondly, if we're then, the potential is for us to then, we would sell it after expropriation at fair market value, correct? So my concern is that the cost, can it be front-end loaded or be a fee, or is there an agreement that they will pay the fee once we do the work?
Mr. Long.
Through you, Your Worship, to Council, there is, at the moment, there is not any sort of formal agreement in place between the city and the owner of the residential lands. However, there is, I think, an understanding between the city and the developer, which really should be formalized somehow. I think, to your point,
That's my
Councillor, that it's the city's expectation that any and all costs associated with the expropriation of this 1 foot reserve would be recovered and reimbursed by the developer, who will ultimately benefit from this expropriation, because as it stands right now, there is no legal access to his lands.
So I guess, is that, do you need a motion for that to happen, or you'll get either an agreement letter or letter of intent from them?
You could put that as an amendment.
Okay.
If you want to put an amendment forward, that staff be directed to put a formal agreement in place prior to the finalization of the expropriation.
Right.
Is that all right, Mr. Long?
Is that right?
Is that all right, Councilor?
Yep.
Councilor Desmarais, is that fine with you?
That's fine.
Okay, so there's an amendment first. Okay, questions to the amendment? All in favor? That's carried. So now back to the main motion. Any further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6. Item 8.6, and we also have a delegation with regards to 8.6. Hubbard Drive application for approval to expropriate. Recommendation that Office of the Chief Administrative Office, Economic Development and Tourism Division Report 2022-171 be received, and that Council supports the recommendations contained in Report 2022-171 to proceed with an application for approval to expropriate Hubbard Drive, legally described as PIN 64150-0014, it being Part Lot 26, Concession 2 Humberston, Part 4 of 59R-1034, and that staff engage the city solicitor to initiate the process. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Wells move that. We do have a delegation which we'll bring forward. Melissa Bigford. Okay, Melissa, how are you?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I've submitted my letter. The other thing, question I had, I wasn't sure if any staff had answers to my questions. But the other big thing was, if the expropriation is approved, how will accessibility be allowed and available to the current landlords abutting Hubbard Drive, especially emergency services? As stated in my letter, the big thing is questions about a laneway usually isn't used as for municipal services. Everything says 65.6 feet. I understand that they might only need 20 feet for the services, but for accessibility in the sense of cars coming in and out. And right now, the roadway actually isn't 30 feet wide because of things growing in. It's probably closer to 16 feet. So I guess that's where I'm at. I don't think it should be approved as stated in my letter. It was kind of done last year when it had expired, and also when the developer built a house where the laneway or the roadway was supposed to be with Street A. So I guess and then my other big thing is, from the own report, is how it can then be sold to recuperate the cost, and why taxpayers are paying for something to expropriate land, whereas it would have been able to be done had the other things not happened.
Okay,
I
Mr.
guess
Long.
that's where I'm.
Mr. Long, any answers to that?
Through you, Your Worship, to Council and to Ms. Bigford, I can say that our Manager of Planning and our Senior Planner and myself reviewed Ms. Bigford's letter today, as well as some questions that we received in advance from members of Council. So we do appreciate Ms. Bigford's comments and Councillors' questions on this. Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, I'll defer to my colleague, the Manager of Planning, who can provide some additional comments, and both our manager and myself are available to answer any questions, any further questions on the issue.
Great, thank you, Mr. Long. Ms. Lander?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the mayor to all of council. When we looked at this opportunity, it was really looked at as an opportunity to help facilitate the development of the larger parcel. Right now, this piece of land is owned by somebody that I think has deceased, and of course, we can't proceed with contacting them, of course. So we are looking at opportunities to expropriate this land to further the ability to develop the lands to the north. In terms of the question for municipal services, the reason that municipal services can't be going down this property to access a larger parcel is that it's not owned by the larger parcel. It is owned by somebody else. So in order for them to be able to bring services down it, either the city would need to own it or the landowner who wants to do the development. Also, there are a couple homes further down the laneway that are using Hubbard Drive as access. And according to our records and doing a title search, it doesn't look like they actually have legal access to use this laneway to access their property. So this is one mechanism to help address that. And that could be dealt with through a development application to ensure that those individuals do have proper access. So in the larger grand scheme of things, it's in the city's best interest, in our opinion, to proceed with the expropriation of this and to really help with the development of a parcel that is located in our urban area, has great potential to accommodate dwellings, potentially affordable housing, and something that we really need for the city.
Okay. No, thank you. No, excuse me. No, excuse me. You're not a delegate. I'm going to ask you to be quiet, please. Thank you.
I was informed about this late in the day.
Excuse me. You're not a registered delegate. Okay, thank you. Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I do have several questions on this. The very first thing I'd like to know is how this came about. How did we end up back examining this piece of property yet again when we all thought it was dead in the water and done, after many years of arguing back and forth and that sort of thing, and knowing that this is absolutely not wanted by any resident anywhere near this property. So how did this come about? How did it get back in front of council again? Why did staff look at the opportunity? What prompted that?
Mr. Long?
Through you, Your Worship, to council. We know that there have been some conversations between the current owner of the property and a potential purchaser. Some discussions. Staff are not privy to the nature and content of those discussions, but based on what we've been told, that there have been some conversations around a potential transfer of ownership, purchase at some point. And so staff had conversations with the owner about some of the access issues, some of the development constraints, and how some of those challenges could be overcome.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, through you, I guess, to Mr. Long. So the owner, the current owner, approached you to speak about this again, or did this? I just don't understand how this came, because I thought it was made very clear to the current owner that this was a done deal. So that it was not going to be happening. So could you explain to me how did that current owner come to you and ask you to help make it happen?
Mr. Long?
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor. My colleague, Bram Cotton, our Economic Development Officer, had conversations with the owner. I wasn't part of those conversations. Mr. Cotton is away this week.
Okay.
That's all I can say, Councillor.
Councillor?
All right, so we'll ask Bram when he gets back, I guess. I would go further then. Thank you, Mr. Long. Go back to Ms. Landry again. When we talk about legal access and whether or not the current residents have legal access to be using Hubbard Drive to come in and out of their properties. Although maybe they don't have legal access. Maybe it's like driving across a field that just everyone does. If we can't even find the current owner of that Hubbard Drive property, why would there be any issue with the current residents using that for access? I don't understand that. So the legal access point, I'm really not clear on why we would even consider that one.
Ms. Lander?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I think no matter what, if you're accessing somebody else's property, whether you can get a hold of them or not, that's still not considered a legal access. You're infringing upon somebody else's property that you don't have legal right to access. And when I'm commenting on that piece in terms of whether those landowners in the homes do have access, this was just a brief title search that was done today to see if we saw anything on title. And at this point, I'm not a lawyer, but from what we've seen, I don't see anything on title. But I will say that, again, that was a quick title search and not an exhaustive legal search.
Counselor?
All right, I do thank you. It obviously didn't stop the current landowner from building a house on it, so they didn't have a problem with legal access either. So we're at that. We come back to looking at the issue that stands in the past, and if this has come back up, then all these issues will come back up as well, and the 28 conditions of draft approval. I'm sure you're aware of those. I have a list of them here. I really would like to know the status of those if we're going to consider moving forward on this, because these are very, very important big points that need to be dealt with. And most importantly, that number 26 on the list, that prior to approval of a final plan, the owner agrees to enter into a subdivision agreement with the city and satisfy all requirements, financial and otherwise, of the city concerning the provision of roads and the installation of services and drainages and any and all other matters to be determined by the city. So, things like that. These are important pieces. And they were put together by city staff. They were agreed upon by all the partners, the people involved at the time. What will be the status of these conditions?
Slander?
Through the mayor to the councillor, my understanding is that plan of subdivision, the Chippewa State subdivision, did lapse in 2021. It was brought forward for a draft plan extension, and council denied the extension. So as such, that land has no draft plan status at all. Therefore, those conditions are null and void. If the owner of that land was to come forward with another draft plan, staff again would draft new conditions, probably quite similar to what's in front of you right now, and they would be required to satisfy those conditions prior to receiving final approval, and final approval is that of council's choice.
Perfect, thank you. That's really the point I wanted to make, is that anybody that even considers building there will be starting from scratch with all of the new regulations and having to hit those targets. That's very, very important for everyone to know and to understand. But I do come back to another point, and I'd like to throw this out to whoever on staff wants to tackle it. But we're looking at expropriating a piece of property. There is a cost involved. We're hoping that someplace down the line somebody's going to come along and pay us that money back in return for the property or whatever. What kind of guarantees do we have? There must be something that is saying, yeah, for sure, we're going to do it. You got to have some agreement in place that is saying we're going to pay you for that. Otherwise, you're throwing a dart at a target without a light on it. Like, it just really is bothering me that we're even considering doing this, and this thing just doesn't pass the smell test. I really don't like it. I want to understand this better. I really do. So maybe you can help us with this.
Mr. Long?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, to the councillor. We appreciate your concerns. I think any costs that the city would incur could be recovered in the future through a development agreement as part of the conditions of any future development of the vacant property. So we hear what the councillor is saying. The city is not going to be fronting any expenses without having those recovered at some point, rest assured. I don't know whether my colleague, the manager, has any other further comments.
Ms. Lander?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I think I would echo our acting CAO's comments. There would be an opportunity to recoup that money. I think really the intent of moving forward with this piece is to hopefully provide access to a property that could be developed. Whether it's the current owner that develops it, a future owner that develops it, I think it's really just, we've got a parcel here that's a significant size that really could contain development and could be an opportunity for development. But at this point, when we've examined it, without them having access through this laneway, they have no other opportunity, from what I can tell, to develop the property. So it's really just looking at helping to move that forward and to move the agenda forward. Of course, I'm now recognizing that, like, the sensitivities of it and the sensitivities from the community. As you can probably respect, that I'm quite new here, but I'm sensing that. But I think that really the intent is to help facilitate development, and development that the city wants, development that the community wants, and development that council wants. And I think we were just looking at this as a first step to that. Okay. And I think we need to take ownership of it, and that way we can move forward and then look at the best options for this piece of land. And when I say the piece of land, I mean the larger piece that a new right-of-way would be providing access to.
Councillor?
Okay. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that reply, and the fact is, many of the staff involved with this are new, so the history isn't there with everybody. So I by no means do I hold you responsible for any of the decisions that are made or what's in front of us right now. But I did want to make sure that you all understand this is incredibly sensitive. This neighborhood was up in arms. They spent money, untold dollars, with legal representation. They went to the OMB. They've really done their work on this, and they were very, very careful to try to protect themselves and their futures. The actual expropriation of the laneway is not so much the issue here. It is what comes after. So knowing it's very clear that, any development will have to jump through new hoops. And we'll have to start from day one, and it will be a very different set of circumstances, I would hope. But I really do believe that going forward, before anything is considered, that it would be very wise to have a public meeting and invite the people around there to hear what they have to say, because it is very important. An expropriation at this point, though, and creating a right-of-way that they can benefit from, I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with that at all. I do have a problem with doing it only to service some developer that may or may not use it in the future, may or may not pay us back. I'm not happy with mays or may nots. I want to know what will be happening, not what can happen. So that's where I stand on that. But I do thank you for putting the work in, but please do consider the people that live there when we're going forward with anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno?
Yes, through you to Mrs. Landry. In order to ensure the legal right of access to the homes that are there, expropriating the property can allow for that legal access to happen. Is that fair?
Ms. Landry?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I think kind of to speak of it high level, if we were to expropriate this, I think a large significant component of it would be to ensure that those homes are retaining access. Whether they legally already have access or they don't legally have access, I think that would be a significant component that we would ultimately ensure that they do have access.
So building on that, then how do we consider selling potentially land when that bit of land needs to remain legally open for those other homes? In other words, why wouldn't it either A, become a city street, or B, do the parties have to agree on access on then what might be the property across potential ownership? Or is this a matter of the existing homes there, do they have a right of purchase?
Ms. Lander?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, there are mechanisms to ensure that if this was privately owned, that the residents through title would be able to maintain access and have legal right to use that, say, laneway if it's privately owned, to access their home. So whether it's a private laneway to access, say, a condominium development, or it's a city right-of-way, the intent and the ability legally would be to ensure that they have access, and we do have that ability to require that if we were to sell the property. That would be a condition and a requirement of sale.
I guess I'm just going to take one dip into the weeds here on this one. So if the existing homeowners, so are both adjacent properties allowed to pursue buying it or buying a portion of it? How does that part happen?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, we do have a disposition of land policy. That might not be the exact term, but a term I'm used to, and we would be required to follow that policy. For this particular piece, exactly how that would move forward, I'm not quite sure. I don't know the policy offhand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor, thank you. Councillor Baggett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question may seem silly, but I have to ask it. The people living on this road now, they drive down this road. Nobody's going to complain to the police that somebody's on there illegally, because nobody has the right to put a complaint in with the police because they don't own it. Am I correct?
Ms. Landry?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that's quite a good question. So you're saying if a complaint came in, we don't know who owns the property, can somebody else complain that somebody else is accessing somebody else's property illegally? Good question. I'm not quite sure.
Maybe I just oversimplify, but I think it doesn't make sense about this road, because there's nobody that's going to come stand up and stand in the middle of the road and say, I own this road, because nobody legally owns the road. So, I don't know. That's just a comment anyways. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Further comments or questions, or any questions for Melissa Bickford? Because I know she made her comments. Okay. Nothing. Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Any further comments or questions on this?
Can I ask why some of my questions still weren't answered?
Which ones, Melissa?
The legal opinion with the lawyer saying that he has no right-of-way access, and I guess my other thing is, how much feet do they need to service? Is the laneway wide enough to actually do the development?
Yeah, Ms. Landry?
Through the mayor to the member of the public, so we're looking at this kind of two pieces. You could either do a city right-of-way. Right now it's approximately 9 meters. Melissa may have said it might be slightly smaller. So 9 meters, could you fit servicing in that as a right-of-way? I'd have to probably defer to our Director of Public Works in terms of whether that could actually be a right-of-way. In terms of a private laneway, can you fit servicing in that? Private laneways don't have to meet our standards for right-of-way widths to a municipal standard. So yes, it most likely probably could be used as a private laneway.
Steve?
But what about, because you're now talking about a future development, that's the whole point that why this is being brought forward, is to enable the development. But is the laneway suitable for the development when under the development it was a 60-foot wide street A, which again was eliminated when the house was built?
Mr.
So I just don't know how a 30-foot wide right-of-way can work.
Mr. Shapowski.
Through you, Your Worship, to Council. What would need to happen is when the developer is planning their design for the subdivision, they would have to work up a new standard for a laneway for access and for underground infrastructure to ensure that it's accessible in the future. One thing I did want to note too at the same time is that if we do have intentions to take this over without adding a subdivision at the end of it, there would be cost in upgrading it to be maintained, because currently it's privately maintained. So we would need to install a turnaround and upgrade the granular in the area and such too. So if that's the intent, is to hold it within the city long term, that would be an extra cost that we'd have to consider at the same time.
Okay. Melissa?
I guess there's no idea of what that cost is, because then again, that's a cost to the taxpayer. And then I guess from what you're saying, in the disposition of land, does it automatically get sold to the developer, or do the abutting landowners have the right to purchase it? And then aren't we in the same situation of who owns the land if the city is planning to recoup the cost by selling it? That's where I really get confused in the report, and I don't feel like I've got that clarification tonight yet. Sorry.
Ms. Landry? Mr. Long?
Through you, your worship, to council and to Ms. Bigford, the focus of staff and this staff report is not to convey the laneway to anyone or to divest ourselves of any parcel. The focus of the staff report is to bring forward the expropriation discussion and get some council feedback. I want to provide assurances to council that staff are committed to working in the public interest. There has to be some public benefit to this expropriation. We feel there is, our solicitor feels there is, in terms of correcting access issues and creating an opportunity for future development. We do require more housing in our city. Our public policies, our planning policies speak to that. So the focus of the report is expropriation. That's all.
Okay. Councilor Borgard?
Through your worship, Mr. Shapowski, you mentioned that about the infrastructure, if there's going to be an upgrade to that infrastructure, that would be cost on the taxpayer. You may be able to answer this, but this question might actually be better for Ms. Landry. Can't that cost not be recouped through the conditions of draft plan of subdivision or severance applications if there were to be one in the future?
Who wants to take that? Ms. Landry?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct. There would be an opportunity to recoup that, as that servicing would be for the development, for the draft plan.
Okay. All right. Anything further, Melissa?
I guess there's no way of knowing how much that's going to cost, even though it could be recouped, because you don't know how long it's going to take. So then, that's all. I think that's, yeah. I mean, I get why the city wants to do it in the sense of future development, but over the past 12 years and different things that have happened, it was basically once certain things were done and it was made aware that all those things being done would affect the development, and it was chose to go through. And in one of the other reports, it was stated in the red line revision, but it almost like it was passing the buck to the city to then expropriate. And that is just it's a fine line, I guess, is where I see it, that now because they chose to do certain things, the city has to kind of bail them out, and then indirectly taxpayers have to bail it out until it gets recouped further along. So I think I'm okay then.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Further questions? Angie? Yeah, we're getting there, Councillor. We're getting there. Don't worry. I got two sides of the table to look after. We're getting there. Go ahead, Angie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really would like to see this go back to staff because my biggest problem here is access to the existing properties. And what you're saying now, even if it became a private laneway, that creates problems of its own. There's nothing to ensure access to the existing properties. I'd like to see this go back to staff and have staff come back when they're ready to explain how that will happen so that the properties are treated fair and equitably. So that's what I really want to see.
Okay, so because you've already spoken on that, you can't make a motion to refer, but we do have councillors that haven't spoken on this. If anyone wants to make a motion to refer, I'll take that on the floor. Councillor Wells.
I'd like to make a motion to refer this to staff for further investigation on better access and less onus on the city.
Councillor Bodnar, would you second that?
I would, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Desmarais, just in the form of bringing information for staff to bring back to us, is there anything to add? It is just a motion to refer, but so staff gets the proper information to come back to us. Further what Councillor Wells said.
Yeah, I think we've said quite a lot tonight that they can probably take on, but I'm happy to draft something and send it to everybody so that we're all clear. Okay?
That's fine. I think lots been said. Okay, staff, you all right with that? Yes. Okay. No further debate. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8.8. No, sorry, 8.7. I apologize. Councillor Desmarais wanted 8.7 to come forward. Recommendation report for zoning bylaw amendment D14-05-22, 409 Davis Street, Development and Legislative Services Department. The Development and Legislative Services Department report 2022-179 be received, and that council approves the zoning bylaw amendment attached as Appendix A to amend the subject lands from second density residential R2 zone to fourth density residential R4-68 zone. If I could have councillors Beauregard and Desmarais move that. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had lifted this for the purpose of being able to be really clear on how the grass is going to be laid in here, because from the Bell Street side of the building, from the building itself to the sidewalk is all pavement right now. That would have to be ripped up and grass put in. But on the other side of the sidewalk, from the sidewalk to the boulevard, is also all pavement that was done by City Works many, many years ago as a favor to the resident. But unfortunately, what that's done is create double side parking. So people are using it to park, oftentimes, especially when the Italian halls are busy, that sort of thing. You see it happen a lot, and they double decker it, so it's on street parking and then parking above. So that's a real problem. I would like to see us somehow or other, whether it be through our budget deliberations, rip up that asphalt that is on the boulevard and replace that with sod, or possibly the landowner may be willing to do it at the same time that they're ripping up their pavement to put alongside of the building. But I'd like to see us deal with that. That's the reason I brought this forward.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Ms. Landry, with regards to what was said at the public meeting, because the proponent talked about ripping up on their property the tar and then replacing with grass. So that'll be part of the site plan agreement between staff and the proponent, is that correct? Can you answer that tonight?
Yeah, so we do have the mayor, the ability through site plan to control those components. So that's definitely something that we could look at through the site plan process.
Okay, so staff will have that. I mean, they have the authority to do that, so we'll make sure that they get that in there. Okay, Ms. Landry, you make sure of that. As far as the city-owned portion that is paved through to Mr. Shapowski, that can be brought forward. Is that something you need to bring forward at budget time, or is that something that staff can move forward once the proponent starts their section? Is that something we can look at doing in tandem?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, I think we could do it that way instead of bringing it through the budget process.
Is that all right, Councillor? Okay. Is that all right, Councillor, since I had you part of the mover? Okay. Councillor Bruno.
Through you too, Mr. Shapowski. I'm just wondering if it's a time maybe to have a cursory look at what the sidewalk's like there, because if that's going to dissect what the private landowner is going to do, Councillor Desmarais would like the public side to be grass. If that sidewalk's in bad shape, seems like a coordinated job would be a lot easier to do than trying to cut out that wedge between the curb and sidewalk, not damage the sidewalk, and work in that confined space. Perhaps just a first blush look at that might tell us if Chester Johnson did it or...
If Chester Johnson did it, it'll last another 100 years.
In 57 or something like that. Yeah. And just maybe a quick look. Thanks.
You'll take that into consideration, Mr. Shapowski, with regards to our sidewalk program?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Item 8.8 is recommendation report for a temporary draft plan extension to the Rosedale Estates subdivision. The recommendation is that Development and Legislative Services Department Planning Services Report 2022-176 be received. The council approved the temporary extension of the Rosedale Estates draft plan of subdivision for a period of 4 months. And the council approved the bylaw authorizing the temporary extension of the Rosedale Estates draft plan of subdivision for a period of 4 months. I have Councillors Bagu and Desmarais moving that. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems like it wasn't that long ago we've talked about this, and I sort of looked it up. It's come to council for extensions 5 times. This is number 6, and there was quite a bit of conversation the last time it came to council, and the time before that. And last time it come to council, pretty well with Councillor Bruno's help, it got passed, and basically I was understanding that that was the last kick at the can, and it would, I think it's been discussed long enough. This developer, the cost involved is minor to get this 4-month or 1-year extension. I think staff time's a lot more valuable. It can be used on other things that's more positive towards the municipality. This is being strung out way too long, and our planning staff, I think it's more important for them to go on projects that are going forward rather than being delayed 5 or 6 times, Mr. Mayor. So that's pretty well all I've got to say for it. I guess you can figure out how I'm going to vote on this. Thank you.
Just to clarify, this is being brought forward, Ms. Landry, through staff, not by the proponent?
Through the mayor to all of council, we received a request to extend draft plan approval for 1 year. We do also have our senior planner, David, online, but I'm quite certain it's for 1 year. Due to some staffing changes, we have not had the opportunity to have in-depth conversations with the region as well as our internal engineering team. Due to that, we've decided to present to you guys tonight an extension of 4 months that will allow us to go back and to have those appropriate conversations and to kind of sort out those issues if possible, and then come back forward with a recommendation for you. At this point, what the recommendation will be, I don't know. We have to be able to do that deep in-depth analysis, and due to this draft plan lapsing potentially in the next couple days, we had to bring something forward to you, and we didn't think it was fair to let it lapse without us being able to have that wholesome review.
Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm with Councillor Bagnew on this. Over 34 years, 5 times it's been here. The last time there was extensive discussion on it. Staff was very clear that they weren't going to support it again. Council was very clear of the same thing. Councillor Bruno kind of swayed us a little bit, and we thought we'd give him some leeway there. But you know what? I'm absolutely not interested in going forward with this at all anymore. I think it is a waste of staff's time, and staff could be put their time to far better use. Thank you.
Councillor Bruno.
I guess my concern on this is, maybe not so much the last 4 years, but in previous times, one of the litmus tests for whether to grant an approval was the developer actively trying to proceed to do things to fulfill the conditions of the site plan. So before voting on this, and maybe you did that in your 4-month synopsis, it seems to me that there's been A, extensive grubbing there, B, for Mr. Schultz or others, has there been active spending of money to fulfill the conditions? Has there been things that have been done with Upper Canada? Has Upper Canada kept the planning department advised of anything that's going on? So my litmus test for extending a draft plan of subdivision is I'm all for letting ones lapse that aren't amounting to anything and nobody's heartily pursuing it, because I then think it's just land banking and extensions. So notwithstanding that this is an incredible amount of extensions, I think the litmus test should be, is, in staff's opinion, everything being done by the developer to try and move his development forward? And I think, to me, it's pretty clear either they have or they haven't. In your case, you're taking the middle road that says, we haven't had a chance to look at it because of all the staff changes and that. So, I mean, we don't know the answer to that question in this report, and perhaps you don't either, and hence you're asking for the extension. But I can't vote against any developer who staff tells me has been pursuing fulfilling the conditions. So in this case, and in every case going forward, if you're telling me and staff is that the developers made all kinds of efforts, save and except for COVID, they're spending money, you can prove it with the consulting engineer's report, then I can support that. If not, I can't support it. So I don't know if you can answer the question, or David can, has there been active work on this plan of subdivision? Because all we ever can see is just the physical stuff, which we've seen it all grubbed and it looks like it's ready to go. If he's engaged archaeologists or he hasn't, is he engaged the neighboring subdivision to get access through it out to Elm Street? Then it's a yes or no. What I don't think we have is any of those questions answered. So for that reason, I would want to take your advice and extend it till you research that.
Mr.
I just think that's fair. Thank you.
Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruno. You're partly correct in the sense that we haven't, in staff's opinion, had a fair chance to take a look into that a little bit further. I know there have been some concerns with servicing of the site along with the neighboring Meadow Heights development. So those will need to be looked at internally. Unfortunately, we have had some staffing changes in the recent past that have made those discussions a little challenging to have because we don't have those staff people here. So that's what we will be using the 4 months for if council chooses to approve this tonight. Basically to get to the bottom of what has been happening over the last 2 years. And if it's not clear to staff, then unfortunately we won't be able to support it either. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And we're looking forward to bringing a recommendation forward that has all of the boxes checked and make sure that this is moving forward if that is the case.
Councillor?
Thank you.
All set? Further questions? No further questions? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? There's one, he can't vote.
Right.
So it's carried, 4-3. Thank you, staff. There are, sorry. That's it for the items. There are no motions this evening. Any notices of motion? None? We have consent minutes of boards and committees. I'll do these in block. We have the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum minutes of June 21st. Port Colborne Economic Development Advisory Committee minutes of March 17th, 2021. Senior Citizens Advisory minutes of May 17th. Port Colborne Public Library Board June 1st. Grant Policy Committee minutes of February 7th. If I could have Councillors Bodner and Danch move those. Any questions on any of the minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaws. I'm going to separate the bylaws council because I do have some conflicts here. Where did I put my conflicts? Oh, I put it down. Oh. Where did I put that? Oh, here we are. I got it. I've got it. Okay, council. So under bylaws, if I can pull items 21.1 and 21.4 for Councillor Beauregard's conflict. If I could have Councillors Bagu and Bruno move that. Are there any questions to those two? Guys, there's one meeting going on, please. Thanks. So 21.1, 21.4, I got Bagu and Bruno moving that. Questions on those two? All in favor? That's carried. Now we are on to item 21.1 we've done, 21.4 we've done. So 21.2, 21.3, 21.5. I'll do those in block. If I could have Councillor Wells and Desmarais move those. Questions? Are there any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we do have some confidential items this evening, Council. Find my verbiage here, Madam Clerk, that you so importantly gave to me. Here we are. So if I could have Councillors Desmarais and Bruno move that council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. 21.1 minutes of the closed session of July 12, 2022 council meeting. 21.2 Chief Administrative Office Department Report 2022-165 pursuant to Municipal Act 2001 subsections 2392C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. 21.3 Chief Administrative Office Department Report 2022-169 pursuant to Municipal Act 2001 subsection 2392C, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Questions on this? All in favor? That's carried. For those watching us from home, we will be adjourning into, or moving into confidential, and when we come out, we won't be coming back on to WeeStream, so we'll come back out to public to adjourn. So please enjoy the rest of the week. And remember, August 15th is the 13 for 13 at Lakeview Park with the province of New Brunswick. We look forward to seeing everybody that can possibly make it to come out and enjoy themselves. Thank you.